This video is going to help you stop making some crucial mistakes. Today I want to talk about myths, and these are myths that you've probably heard from different coaches and trainers, probably multiple times, and at least a couple of these myths you probably have bought into. These myths can hold you back from being as effective as a hooper as you can be. So in this video, I want to not only expose these myths, but leave you with the truths, which, like I said, can completely change the game for you. These truths are going to help you to score more points, make more plays, and just in general be a more successful player. Let's get into it. One of the biggest myths in the game of basketball is the myth of the one dribble pull-up. A lot of players growing up work on the majority of the time two different shots, which is the catch and shoot three and the one dribble pull-up. When you think about just a basic shooting workout, it's probably going to be mostly focused on those things. And while I agree that the catch and shoot three is probably the most important shot in basketball, I think that the one dribble pull-up is pretty much the opposite of that. And the reason for that is that one dribble pull-ups just don't really happen all that often in games. Pull-ups in general happen significantly less often than a catch and shoot three is going to happen, or a finish at the rim is going to happen, or really these days, even less so than like a floater or a runner is going to happen. The majority of the pull-ups that do happen, though, are going to happen off of 2 or 3 dribbles. And the film is going to back this up no matter what level of basketball that you watch. The majority of times when mid-range pull-ups happen, it's coming off of a ball screen or it's off of a closeout that's getting attacked. Now on a ball screen, it's pretty much always going to be more than one dribble unless you're shooting a three, but I'm talking mid-range pull-ups here. When we get to mid-range in a ball screen and we get to a pull-up, it's gonna almost happen every time off of either 2, 3 dribbles, maybe more than that, depending on how you set them up. And again, I'm gonna put some clips here that are gonna show that as well, but the majority of the time is going to be off of more than just one dribble, and every time it will be when it's a ball screen. And then even when it's a closeout, right, and that defender's closing out to you and you attack, generally you need to create more space, or the open space is farther away than you're going to be able to get in just one dribble. So most of the time it's going to be off of 2. Now, the only time when one dribble pull-ups really do happen is off of a shot fake, because a lot of times when you shot fake and that defender bites on it and they jump and they clear out of your way, then there's a ton of open space around you. All you need to do is really reset your feet. So one dribble pull-up might be something that you do. Now, more increasingly today, if you're shot faking a defender on the 3-point line and they're flying by you, you're probably taking a dribble and shooting a 3, right? You're probably just resetting your feet. The majority of the time, you're not taking one dribble into the mid-range and shooting that shot, unless you can't shoot threes, which is a problem. I think it's important to understand that that shot is becoming incredibly obsolete in the game of basketball. Again, the majority of the time anyway, you're going to be shooting it off of 2 or 3 dribbles. When we think about the purpose of the mid-range pull-up, it is as a counter to getting to the rim, right? If you catch the ball and ideally you can shoot the ball, so your first thought is, if I'm open, I'm going to shoot it and get the shot that's worth 3. If you're not open, the next thought's got to be get to the rim. And if you can't get to the rim because the help is there, the defender is trying to turn and recover and not get that lane to the basket, that's when you get to that pull-up as the counter, because that's what's being given to you. Or, depending on where you play at, you drive and you kick it, and that's increasingly becoming what basketball's about. Is we're not going to shoot the mid-range, we're going to get a 3, we're going to get a layup or a floater. So instead of working on one dribble pull-ups, pretty much get them out of your regiment, because they're just not very important and not very useful. Instead of that, work on 2 dribble pull-ups coming off of ball screens, coming off of rip throughs, whether it be a straight up rip through or a jab or some sort of jab variation. It could be coming off of like drop footwork. If you don't know what drop footwork is, click the top link in my description below to get my free Elite Perimeter Score program, where we go through all the drop footwork stuff. So if you don't know what drop footwork is, this will completely change the game for you. So make sure you go down and get that completely free if you don't know what I'm talking about. But you can get to 2 dribble pull-ups coming off of drop footwork. That's where you can actually find some value in the pull-up right there. And this is going to prepare you much more for the shot that you may take in games. The second myth that I want to dispel here is the myth of getting to the basket in one dribble. I think if you're listening, you've probably heard the phrase, get to the rim in one dribble, or something along the lines of that said to you by a coach at some point or another. And the thing is, I think that most coaches mean well by this. I think that what they mean is, don't waste dribbles, be efficient, be fast. But in reality, always trying to get to the rim in one dribble is the absolute worst thing you can do. And I see this with a lot of players that I work with, where they don't understand this concept. They try and cover as much ground as possible with every dribble when they drive, and then they wonder why they don't finish as well, they're not as on balance, and it's because it's been ingrained into them, hey, you got to get there in one dribble. When you really break it down, the more distance that you cover with a dribble, the less powerful you're going to be, meaning it's going to be much easier for you to get bumped and pushed around and have that affect your actual finish, right? You're going to be a worse finisher if you consistently are trying to get to the basket in one dribble and there's defense around you, where you're just going to consistently be worse. When you try to get to the rim in one dribble and finish, you set yourself up to be very weak on your drives and on your finishes. On the opposite side of that, when you get there in 2 or 3 dribbles on your drives, you become much more powerful, and defenders are going to find it harder to bump you off of your line, and they're going to find it harder to really impact your finishes. This is for a couple of reasons. First of all, by using extra dribbles on your drives, you give yourself more options. So if you're going to get there in one dribble, you're pretty much dead set on what you're going to do when you take that dribble. But if you're taking 2 dribbles, you might take that first dribble and notice that the defender overcommitted, right? And maybe they left a gap for you to try and get through with like maybe a Euro step or maybe with a, like a hop step or something like that. You get that because you have another dribble that you're using. You're not trying to cover all that distance in one dribble. You might take that one dribble and then realize, oh, I'm going to have a teammate open if I change my angle on my drive a little bit more so I can kick it out to them. And you're able to change your angle a little bit on that second dribble. I can drive here, and on that second dribble, I can change my angle a little bit, and next thing you know, I actually have a finish here. Extra dribbles gives you more options, which makes you a better player. The other thing is that it's going to make you so much more powerful and under control. It's going to allow you to get to 2-foot finishes much more easily, which is going to allow you to be able to finish better. Again, if you don't know what I mean by 2-foot finishing, or if I say a stride stop finish, make sure you click that top link down below, get my free program. We go through the stride stop stuff. This is really, really important. And it allows you to get to that sort of stuff and become just a much more versatile, powerful finisher. And you're going to notice by consistently taking 2 or 3 dribbles on your drives to the basket, it's going to allow you to finish at a much higher rate. And I think this is one of the biggest myths that is portrayed in basketball, is getting there in one dribble. My word of advice to you is leave the one dribble drives for the pregame layup lines when there's no defense, because it'll work for you then. It's not going to work as well for you in actual games where there's defense trying to stop you. And the last myth that I want to go through is the myth of the hop versus the 1-2 when it comes to shooting here. And there's so many coaches out there, and maybe you've experienced this too, where they want you to shoot a certain way. Cam Johnson of the Brooklyn Nets was just talking about on a podcast a few weeks ago about how when he was in college, he had a coach who always told him, hey, you got to step into your shot left, right. And every time they'd work out, he would say that, but then you go watch the film and you'd see like, oh, I don't actually do that, right? And JJ Redick had the same sort of sentiment, which is we have to work on the footwork that we actually do in games. When you look at the hop versus the 1-2, they both matter in different situations, right? We spent a ton of time on the hop, and if you've been through any of my shooting workouts recently, we spent a ton of time working on the hop because it allows us to a lot of times shoot the ball quicker and be able to utilize a little bit of energy give back, and it just allows us to extend our range a little bit, be a little bit faster with our shot. So a lot of times it's ideal, especially when you're coming off of like a driving kick or something like that. But there's also times where a 1-2 makes sense. Maybe you're in transition, right, and you're stepping into the shot that way. There could be certain situations on a driving kick where just your feet happen to be in a position where you're stepping into it more like a 1-2. So from that perspective, you have to be able to do both of them. And I think this is where a lot of coaches miss the mark, is they want to make players repeat everything every single time the same way. And there's this false belief that if you just do something the same way every single time in practice, it's going to make you good in games, and it's not true. Because games are so unpredictable and so random that you have to be equipped to be able to do things different ways when the situation calls for it. If you can only shoot off of a hop, you're going to be limited. If you can only shoot off of a 1-2, you're going to be limited. If you watch the film, and there's been plenty of clips I've been playing here, if you watch it, you're going to see there's different situations that call for different types of footwork, and they make sense in those situations. So I think it's really important players work on being able to do both. They don't limit themselves. They don't box themselves in. If you're a coach or a trainer watching, don't box your players in. Give them multiple solutions to this. And if you're a player and you focus on this and you focus on developing both types of footwork, it's going to help you to be prepared to make shots in a variety of different situations, which is how you become a great shooter overall. Let me know down below if there are any other myths that you know of that you want me to talk about. Like I said as well, make sure you click that top link in my description down below to get my free Elite Perimeter Scorer program. That's going to help you with some of the stuff we talked about, but just in general, going to help you take it to the next level. So make sure you guys click that down below, completely free. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new. I appreciate you for watching. Talk to you soon. Peace.